Okay, are we live? Are we working? Are we working? G'day folks, how you doing? Thanks for joining me here. If you're tuning in, this is my attempt at playing the world's most awesome computer game on video. This is Betrayal of Krondor, of course. I'm sure some of you will be have seen other YouTubers tackling this one. I've had a lot of enjoyment watching other guys do it. And I felt that I really wanted to give it a go myself. Look, just to get some content out there, not to sell myself up, but I've got to make a lot of professional online content this year in the form of lectures and that, and I'm just trying to get in the groove. I'm not a computer gamer. I'm not a computer gamer who puts himself online playing games, but I just wanted to have a go at this one to see if I could get the video working and all that sort of thing. Really enjoyed dudes like Ghost Long Plays, I think it is, and Old Dragon, and I think another one is a Kiss Koskia or something like that, if I've pronounced that right. Really enjoyed watching those guys tackle this one, especially the ones who hadn't played the game before. Really brave to have a go and then whack it online, and the comments and the feedback. I just had a lot of laughs. It was fantastic. So look, you've probably seen a fair few of these. I'm just going to give it a crack. The angle I'm going to come from is I've played this game about 20 or 30 times over the last 30 years. I'm an absolute tragic for it. It's really sad. It's just a game I will play once every 2 years or every 3 years or something like that. I just can't stop. It's like watching endless, sort of Midsummer Murders reruns. You just can't bring yourself to stop. It's pretty sad, and I need to do something else. But it's just a game I can't get out of my head. Look, I was given this game in 1993 by a friend, so that must have been pretty soon after it came out. And the game came on 7 3.5-inch floppy disks. I remember it took about an hour to install disc after disc. It took up about, 10, 11 megabytes on the hard disk, and the hard disk was only 30 megabytes back then. So it took up, a third of the hard disk, and I'd say everything else shove over so I can get Betrayal of Krondor on the computer. I started playing it on a 386, which was an absolute disaster, but being a 13-year-old kid in Western Sydney with absolutely knowing nothing about computers, I just put up with it. I just put up with playing it. It became the most frustrating, unfair game I had ever come across. I was kicking my bed, I was almost punching holes in the walls, and I wanted to track down the brilliant people that had made the game and just kill them for making it the way I saw it. So unfair, so hard, so confusing, so quirky. But in the years that followed, I just kept playing it again, and trying to get better at it and redoing it and just trying to do things that I might have missed, the previous time. And the angle I take in this game is I try and do everything. I try and do every fight. I try to go to every single area. I try to find every treasure chest. I try to unlock every lock. I try to look behind every door. I just try and do everything. So I don't know how many videos I'm going to make here, but if anyone's interested in it, look, it might be more, if some new teenagers are getting into it or anyone like that. My videos will serve as, I think, this is how you can play it, and this is how you can set up your characters in the right sort of sequence if you want, so the game doesn't become really annoying and really sort of challenging. Just watching, again, Ghost Long Plays, I really enjoyed his commentary, but I did worry for him at a point there where I thought he was just chewing up so much coin and so much restoratives, getting hammered in the dimwood and places like that. What I tend to do in this game is pick the right times to go to the right areas. You don't have to explore everywhere in Chapter 1, but definitely in Chapter 3 you want to be running around doing stuff in most of the game. It's hard to know where you can go and where you can't go in different chapters, but for example, you're much better off going through the Dimwood in Chapter 3 when you've got the spyglass and your characters are toughened up a bit, as opposed to Chapter 2 or Chapter 1. There's so much to find in there, and you can come out of the Dimwood, you know, with some serious arsenal, if you know what you're doing. So, yeah, look, I just play it that way. I try and put a sensible sort of, you know, step-by-step sort of logical sequence to it. And the other challenge I want to give myself, and I think I always do this, I try not to lose a fight. I try not to lose a single fight. So one of my characters might hit the dust, or two of them, namely Patris most of the time, but I try not to lose a fight. I try and conquer the fight on the first go, and that's what I'll be trying to do again. I'd sort of align it there with a game like Diablo 2. I love Diablo 2, and every time I replay it, and some people might do this as well, you try and see how far you can get before you die, and once you die, you sort of feel pretty shitty that you've already died. I try and get as far as I can in Diablo 2 without dying, and you know, I'm sure heaps of people give themselves that challenge too. But yeah, that's the sort of angle I'll be giving it, and I just want to see how I go. Just important, I think, to cover the preferences. Look, I've had a bit of trouble with everything. I'm not a computer savvy person. I'm not. I just read helpful information online and try and figure out things as I go. For people who want to know, I'm running this in DOSBox. I've got it on about 18,000 cycles, I think, at the moment. Just when I try to record what I'm doing, it goes a bit jerky, and I'm just putting up with that because I think it's going to work. What I'm really happy about is I've managed to figure out a few things. I've never played the CD version of the game, and I see some people have that. It looks really good. Like I said, I had it on 7 floppy disks. So a lot of fun there, and especially when you wanted to copy it and give it to someone else. The CD version looks really good, the music sounds really good, but I've been playing this in DOSBox, I think, over the last 10 years or maybe more, and it's always really irritated me that I've lost a few sound effects with DOSBox. So in the main, what I mean is those really cool audio sound bites that you get when you meet the NPCs. I love those. I really love those. And I was always spewing that I couldn't get them to work. And I used to read forums and try and do some stuff. You wouldn't believe it, 2 days ago, I managed to get those audio sound bites to work. So when I bump into Squire Phillip, I hear his little, you know, halt there that he does to say g'day. I love that. I really love that part of the game. And I'm going to play it this time, and I haven't heard those audio sound bites for about 20 years. So that's really cool. If you want to know how I did that, I just noticed with some of the YouTubers, those audio sound bites were missing, and I just think it's a bit of a shame. I won't do everything perfect either. I think this is going to be a little bit jerky in some of the music. Look, I'm just going to put up with it and see how it goes. But I read some forums. I downloaded Munt. I can put this in the comments if anyone's interested. I downloaded Munt. I got the MT32 file. I downloaded some ROMs. I whacked those in there. I changed a setting in DOSBox options to MT32. I did the same in the Krondor resource file. And then I got this really weird sound with really echo sound effects, and it was really bad. Like I said, man, I can't put up with this. All I did was go back to the Krondor resource file, I think, and I turned the MT32 back to Sound Blaster driver, or whatever it is, and the music went back to normal, and those audio sound bites from the NPCs worked, and I'm cheering. I'm absolutely stoked. Like I said, I'm not a computer person, but I managed to figure that out. Might be able to explain it to you if in the comments if you're interested, but I've got it to work and I'm pretty cheering. So look, want to give a bit of an intro in this video. I know I have already, but I sort of want to go into the background. I'm not going to do a lot of gameplay, if any, in this video. Just want to talk through what I know. Want to make it, you know, nice and extended and nice and fun. And always happy to hear comments from you guys. I've really set myself up here. I've played the game 30 times, and you guys might say to me, I can't believe you don't know this bit, or I can't believe you don't do this, or whatever. I try and get my characters to the highest level possible, mainly in terms of combat, but I also try and get them up there in terms of haggling and barding and all that sort of thing, but it's mainly the combat skills I'm interested in. And sometimes I try and get as much gold as I can as well. I'm sure you could kill me, thrash me on that sort of thing. But, you know, I try and get up to 20,000 gold or 30,000. It'd be interesting to hear how high you guys have gotten to. I'm sure you've beaten that. But, yeah, I just try and do everything in the game, every single thing you can do. I go back to the same spots and get new combats. You know, I'll go into the Krondor sewers 2 or 3 times just so I can get new combats and explore the whole thing. Walk up the West Coast section 2 or 3 times, maybe chapter 1, 2, 3, 6, just so you can get every new combat that you can get. Yeah, that's what I do. That's how I play it. So I'm definitely not coming in here for the first time. This last thing to talk about just here is I have read the books. I've read the books. I'm a huge Raymond E. Feist fan. I was given this game, and then the same friend gave me the Rift War Saga after he gave me this game. So I was, those books changed my life. So I want to give a bit of background about those as well as we go through the game. So I am an avid reader of Ray Feist. I haven't read his later stuff, but I've read a hell of a lot of his early stuff, and I did want to make a commitment this year to try and read his latest stuff as well, and just become more of a committed fan again. So I'm going to get this started. Chapter 1, Into a Dark Night. I'm getting a bit jerky with the music, but I'm just going to bloody put up with it. Blood-soaked rags collected at the boy's feet. One by one, he tended the wincing soldier's purple wounds, stitched, salved, bandaged, did what little he could in the leaping golden halo of firelight. Fortunately for his roadside patient, he could do more than most. Fingers slick with alum ointment, he worked fervently to tie off a catgut cord, then brushed the injury with a light touch that to the untrained eye would seem only a friendly pat. Others would recognise the telltale hand gesture as a magical ward against infection. Done, Owen sighed, wiping his hand in a rust-coloured cloth. No guarantees though. The stitches may hold all the way to Lamut, and then again push too hard, and you could be bleeding like a stuck pig on Midsummers. You did fine, Senior Lockley replied, smiling approval before rolling down his sleeve. It'll scar, but it's good for a noble's reputation. Lets the kingdom folk know he isn't resting on his laurels, and it impresses the ladies. I'll be sure to look you up into Burn if I ever need stitching up again. The boy accepted the compliment with a humble nod while he packaged away the rest of his medical supplies, his thoughts focused instead on a third man who slumped in the shadows across from them. Despite the manacles that bound the stranger's hand and the distance that separated them, the boy felt dreadfully exposed. His avenues of escape limited should Lockley's elven-looking prisoner decide to liberate himself. What did he do? Owen whispered, jerking his head towards the man. Gorath? Let's just say that he had the disadvantage of being at the wrong place at the wrong time, Lockley said cautiously. He snatched a greenish apple out of his knapsack, offering one to Owen. I have to take him to Krondor. Did he kill someone? Owen asked. No. He attacked you. The senior wiped apple juice from his mouth and shook his head. No, not exactly. Well, who cut you up then? Before Lockley could reply, Gorath leapt forward, his chains writhing between his wrists like metallic vipers. Always love that sound. Get out from underfoot, Owen. Assassins in the camp. No idea how Gorath would talk. Do not struggle so, Haseth. I wish to keep you alive. But be glad I do not. The goddess of death will show you greater mercy. I really love that dude getting strangled. He looked exactly like a mate I went to school with. Just hilarious. Yeah. So if you're sort of wondering what's going on, look, I just want to give a bit of background just because I'm so passionate about the book, so passionate about the story. So, after that, I'll probably wrap up this intro chapter. But if you want to get into the Raymond E. Feist books, the place to start is Magician. And I'll say it's one of the best books ever written. That's just me. But it was initially released as 2 parts, Magician Apprentice and Magician Master, I think it is. And I only ever read the book as 1 copy, the 2 things in one, and it was renamed Magician. It's an absolutely awesome book, and it centers on this world here. Now, this map that we've got in this game, Betrayal of Krondor, and this story, it's only a subset of Raymond Feist's, whole world, which is called Midkemia, or Midkemia, if you prefer. I call it Midkemia. And this part here, it's a subset. So, for example, if you go over here to the east of the map, there's more towns. There's a lot more towns in the maps in the books. So Magician's the first one, and then you want to get Silverthorn and A Darkness at Zethanon. And I've just reread those 3 books in the last sort of 3 months. Really glad to read them again. They're fantastic. There's also more towns here going up what you call the west coast, I guess. There's towns there as well, and there's a few more towns that just haven't been added here. But this is a subset, and they sort of call this area here and over here the Kingdom of the Isles, or the Kingdom. So the humans will refer to it as the Kingdom. The king lives over here to the west, I think it's on a little island. It's a city called Rillanon, and that's where he reigns. At the moment, the king's brother, and his name's Prince Arutha, and he's one of the main characters in Magician, Silverthorn, A Darkness at Zethanon. I'll call that the Rift War Saga. That's what it's called, those 3 books. He's one of the prominent characters. He's now the prince in Krondor. And his other brother, called Duke Martin, he lives over here in Krondor, and he's the Duke of that town, which he comes into the story, but the town just isn't shown. And basically the humans, which they are, they sort of dominate this area here. So just trying to put a ring around it here. This is a human sort of dominated area. And down here, there's a whole new nation called Kesh, Kesh, and they're the Keshans. In the books, they sort of come across as, if I'm causing no offense here, sort of like Arabic, Middle Eastern people. And then up in the Northlands here, where a lot of the sort of story and action sort of focuses on, this area is dominated by what we call the Dark Elves, or the Moradel, or the Brotherhood of the Dark Path is what they get called, or Dark Brothers. And they're a race of elves, if you like, who are, I don't want to call them evil, but they're bad. They're aggressive, they're violent, they're a bit primitive, I guess. If you walked into one of their camps or towns, they'd happily cut your heart out and probably eat it in front of you. They're long-lived, being elves, and they sort of keep to themselves, and they basically just dream up schemes and plans to gain power, basically grab power, find magical artifacts that will give them power and all that sort of thing. There are some good elves, and they live over here. If my little pointer's working, they live over here in Elvendar, and I'm sure if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, you can think like that as a sort of Lothlorien. There is a queen, just like Galadriel, but her name's Aglarana. She rules Elvendar because her husband is dead. And they're the good elves, and they're called the Eidlahel, or Eidlahel is how I pronounce it, the elves of the light. And they consider their dark brothers to be sort of cousins, but they call them their dark cousins, or their dark brother cousins. What's really interesting is every now and then, every blue moon, one of the Moradel will get a calling or a feeling to return to Elvendar and become a good elf. and they can't sort of resist that feeling. And Raymond Feist writes a few stories about this, which is really cool. And the Moradel elf will flee. He or she will abandon her family, kids, everything else, and they'll try and flee to Elvendar and do what's called a return to the good elf side of things. If any of the other Moradel suspects that they've been called, or they've got the feeling to return, they will kill that Moradel. They'll hunt them down and kill them. So that's the sort of a bit of a background to the world. Magician, without giving too much away, is about a 10-year battle that the humans have with another human army, and there's plenty of time to go into everything. We'll go into that later. But Silverthorn and a Darkness at Zethanon focuses on pretty much the mischief that the Dark Elves get up to cause trouble for the humans and invade the human lands and sort of take over some areas, because there's these agenda to secure a magical artifact that's down here. Without giving too much away, the third book is The Darkness at Zethanon, and that's that town here. It's not so much about the town, it's what's buried underneath the town, an artifact of ancient magical power. And the Dark Elves are sort of always conspiring to try and get to it, and the humans sort of learn about it in that book. But this story, Betrayal at Krondor, is really cool. It's a story made by the people that made the computer game, and Ray Feist did not have, as far as I understand, any input into the text or the places in the computer game. But eventually he thought the computer game was so good and it became so popular, he wrote a book to cover the computer game, and that book's called Krondor, the Betrayal. And that book, or that story, is pretty much the next installment in chronological order for, the books, if you want. So if you read Magician, Silverthorn, A Darkness of Zethanon, you then jump 10 years into the future and you're at Betrayal of Krondor, where this story starts, and you haven't sort of missed any story in between. So you can just jump into this one. So to keep rolling along, Locklear, who is this guy here, he was a prominent character of the Rift War saga. He wasn't a main character, but he was associated with the main characters, and he was part of their adventures and part of their parties. And in this story here, he's about 25 years old, 25, 26. And 10 years ago, Locklear saw some serious military action. Locklear was involved in the main things that were going on, or one of the main stories that was going on in those books. He doesn't appear in Magician, but he comes into Silverthorn and then Darkness at Zethanon. Locklear's been up here defending this city, Armenga, when the humans were in charge of it, and he was defending it with everyone else against a 50,000 strong or more Dark Elf and, bad human army, a bit like sort of Lord of the Rings stuff. They had to abandon that city because it got overrun, and then they went here, and he got caught up in another defense, and then all the humans and all the Dark Elves came racing down this way to try and take or defend this city, whichever way it was. So Locklear's seen some pretty hardcore military action, pretty likable character, but he's only a young kid in the books by Ray, and now he's 25. So what's happened is Locklear was a squire in Prince Arutha's court in Krondor and was one of his sort of men. And in the book, Krondor the Betrayal is the name of the book. Locklear's been caught up in some philandering. He's basically had an affair with a married woman, apparently, and Prince Arutha has had to just get rid of him or get him out of town. So Prince Arutha has sent him up here to Tir Zog, that's how I pronounce that, to help the Baron defend, this sort of area against any mischief by the Dark Elves or the Trolls or the Goblins or whoever's up here sort of mucking around. This area here is called the Borderlands, and the Border Barons, they see a lot of military action because you've always got the Dark Elves stirring up trouble, and they have skirmishes and false raids and all that sort of stuff. And if you don't get killed, you can get a lot of military experience. So you sort of cut your teeth up here. So Locklear's been helping out here. But Locklear and his men, they got involved in Locklear wasn't in charge, but the men he was working with, they got caught up in a skirmish with the Moradhel, the Dark Elves, and he noticed that this guy, Gorath, was running for his life, and the other Moradhel were trying to kill him. So they got caught up in a fight. Gorath wasn't returning to Elvendar. He was just escaping the Northlands and the other Moradhel to try and bring a message to Prince Arutha in Krondor. He wants to give Prince Arutha a message that bad things are happening again in the Northlands and a dictator has taken over. And that dictator's name is Delican. He's another Moradhel, and Gorath and him have known each other for a long time. And Delican's taken over, and he's got plans again to raise a big army, come down into the human world, and I think try and take, that city of Zethanon again. And Gorath has come down to warn the prince because he's just sick of all the pointless bloodshed that the Moradhel get involved in. Gorath is 260 years old. That's what the elves, go on for. He was a chief leader of his clan, of one of the clans of the Moradhel called the Ardanian, I think it's called. He was a chief of that. And apparently in the book, Gorath's kids are already dead. He's gone through 2 wives. I think one of them's dead and one of them left him because in her eyes, he wasn't hungry enough for power. So that's an interesting side there. And Owen's just a kid of about 18, 19 years old. He's from a noble father who's, I think, the Duke of Taburn or something like that. So if I go back to the map, Taburn is over this way again, in the east, what they call the Eastern Kingdoms. Not a lot of action in the books happens over here. It all happens over in what they call the West, all this way, all this area here. And Prince Arutha is called the Lord of the West, or he's a Prince of the West. And Owen left his family, left his father, and he went to study as a magician at a magical academy, which I think is down this way called Stardock, and it's down in this part of the world somewhere. And it's run by Pug, a guy called Master Magician Pug, and Pug is the foremost character in the book Magician. That's who they're referring to. Pug is the magician, who has a very interesting story all the way through Magician, and then gets involved in a really awesome way in Silverthorn and a Darkness at Zethanon as well. There's a couple of parallel stories going on with different characters doing different things, and then they all come together at the end to sort of work out what's going on. So Pug is sort of dealing with these big, huge, magical, universal issues. And yeah, he makes an appearance later in the game as well. But Owen went down there. He struggled with his magical training. He's a bit of a uni dropout. And I don't know what he was doing up here, but he was visiting some relatives, I think, in Yabon there and having a party. And he's come across Locklear and Gorath, I think. He's just come across them, and he's obviously stitched Locklear up because he had a cut, and he's just starting to wonder what he's going to do. Is he going to hang around with these guys, or is he going to go back and face his father to tell him that he's failed at being a magician and he probably needs to join the family business or something like that? So that's Owen's story. So in a nutshell, don't want to go on for too long, but if you want to read the books, I totally recommend it. Start with Magician. I don't think you'll regret it. It's an awesome book. So see how you go, get into it. So just going to jump back out here. I don't know how long I've been going for, but probably enough. I'm just going to walk through here so we can get a bit more of the story, and hopefully it works okay. Gorath seemed distant, though the Moradhel warrior didn't appear grieved about killing the assassin that had followed them from the Northlands. His eyes had a baleful look in them that seemed something between hatred and rage. Several times he glanced back at the corpse that lay behind them in the dust, his thoughts unguessable from his expression. Do you wish to bury him? We could do that. It is not our way. I simply am somewhat disturbed that he should come after me. He was a kinsman. There are other things that trouble me as well. Delican's assistants are slow, but not altogether stupid. Another like Hasseth, and you'll only have my corpse to drag before your Prince Arutha. Sorry, you don't get off that easy. As long as you are under my command, you are forbidden to die, Moradel. I've gone to far too much trouble keeping you alive to bury you now. It's time that we took the chains off of you. It'll be far easier for you to defend yourself if your hands are free to swing a sword again. You're not just going to set him free, are you? I thought you said he was your prisoner. He is my prisoner, Owen, but the circumstances are terribly complicated. Even if he chose to sneak off, he'd be lucky to make it to the next town alive. This is the third such assassin we've run into since we left the Northlands, and I have a feeling that more will be waiting for us. He will be much safer with me, and I with him, as the boy would be. If he were to whisper the wrong word in the wrong ear, he could easily be the death of us. Me? Who am I going to talk to? I'm not even heading in the same direction. It wouldn't be a matter of who you talk to, Owen. There will be ears listening for word of a Moradel travelling with a noble. Damnation. I should have thought about this when you entered camp. For the time being, you're my squire. Once we arrive safely at the palace, you'll be free to go your own way. But I have pressing business into Bern. This is not a subject of debate. We must get to Krondor. My mission is of critical importance, and I don't have time to improvise an easy solution. The only other possible option would be to slit your throat and leave you dying. I have absolutely no desire to do that. Now let's get moving before Delican's assassins catch our scent again. They'll likely come looking when Hasseth doesn't return from his mission. Right, so just a bit of dialogue there to get you started and kick you into gear. Just another comment from me. Look, it's not a criticism. If you look at the maps in Magician and Silverthorn and Darkness of Zethanon, I just like this out of interest. We're up here at Yabon or Yabon, and we've got to get down to Krondor. Now, on the maps, that scale is about 600 miles. What's that, about 960 kilometres? So for someone like me, I'm here in Sydney. That's like walking from Sydney to Melbourne to get to Krondor. So look, I've just had a bit of a giggle at that. I don't know if that was intended, but the three of these guys have to walk 900 kilometres, to get to Krondor. So a lot of fun to be had. Walking through the game doesn't feel like that far. You just stick to these tracks for the most part, and what you've got to sort of look out for as you go along, which is really important in this aerial view, if I zoom right out, is just to look at where you can go. You can go off track and explore these little, alcoves here. If I press that, press N, the map rotates. You can, you get off the track and you say behind this mountain, for example, could be a treasure chest. Over here, there could be a hole or a stump or someone's house. That might give you some valuable information. So as you're walking around the game, it's just a matter of exploring these off-track areas and seeing what's there. There could be fights, there could be all that sort of thing. The same pretty much goes for every sort of road you walk along. You'll just be hemmed in on either side by mountains and rivers and water in some cases, like this river here. Some areas you get to, the off-track area really broadens out and you can go off a fair way. And we'll see that later in the game. You can have a real good sticky beak of what's going on. You can also go into this dimwood area where you just pretty much walk around endless screen space to find what you're looking for. Same in sort of every part except the dimwood, where you just sort of go a bit off track, see what's there. And it's really important to do that if you're going to take your time and find as much as you can. I'm going to wrap it up here because I've been going on for too long. Just wanted to say, like I said, I started playing this on a 386 in 1993. Might have been 1994. Excuse me. And this is how you moved. Like, dunt, dunt, dunt. And then I'd turn and it'd be like, gunk, 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 and then dunt, dunt, dunt. You got this little jobby here that'll glue you to the track. Dunt, dunt. And I just put up with it. I just sort of was, that's what I got to put up with the game. And I turn around like this. And then when I got onto a 486, it was pretty much a speed that this is now. Just going to go up and down the road a bit. it would go quickly like this, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh man, I've been putting up with that all that time. But anyway, that's a good intro into the game. Hopefully, I really want to jump on to the next video and just start playing and relaxing and having some fun with it. That's a bit of a background into it. The best game ever. I just love it. I love this endless screen space. To me, it's almost like a golf course. You know, you just it's almost like you're going over here trying to find your ball so you can hit it on. Just the trees, the birds chirping, the angular sort of stuff. You know, I got family members who can't believe I put up with graphics like this. It's sensational. You know, I love it, and it's really big. The game's pretty big in terms of space and landscape. Just reminds me of one of those early Microsoft golf games or Commodore 64 even. It's hectic, just so cool. All right, thanks for watching. I'll try and post another one soon where we actually get started. Alrighty.